Ah, well, see, it's a very sensitive topic.
Yeah, please.
Now, any generalization would not be doing justice
Mm-hmm.
to the topic itself.
Makes sense.
So I would refrain myself from generalizing to show business or for pressure or for stress, because all these things do contribute a little bit in pushing somebody to in taking that decision of killing himself or herself.
Makes sense.
But
Yeah.
they just play a very small but significantly important role. Okay,
Mm.
center, erstwhile asylum, which is one of the oldest in India, actually, and
Okay.
which caters to all the population of northeast of India. So, but later it changed a lot, and then it became a mental health institute, and I did my MD from there in psychiatry. And later on, I've been working in the field of psychiatry all over India. I've worked in South India, in Bangalore, Nimhans. I've worked in Delhi. I've worked in Banaras, the holy city of Banaras. I've worked as a psychiatrist. And now I'm working in a medical college. I'm also teaching psychiatry to young doctors. So I'm in a teaching profession. I'm teaching medical undergraduates and postgraduates. And I'm also a consultant psychiatrist in Dehradun. You all know it's the capital of Uttarakhand. So all this while, it has been almost a journey of 14 years since I first graduated from the field of psychiatry. So you can say that I've been working in the field of mental health for the last 14 years.
Great.
So
Great knowing
thank you.
about you. And in fact, how long you have been doing this?
14 years,
14 years.
going to be.
That's a long time. In fact, you understand a lot of critical aspects of mental health. Over to thanks again, Avinash, for joining. Over to Parthasarthi Ray, and he's an actor by profession, as well as he's a social activist as well, because he has been into a lot of programs, socially involved typically, and he's much influential face out here in Bhubaneswar, Odisha. And over to you, sir. Just can you just please talk about a few bit about yourself to us? Thank you so much for joining. Your mic is mute, I guess. Partha, your mic is mute. Okay, okay. Must be some technical glitch. Let him join in. In the meantime, we'll just, once he joins back, we can talk about him, and then I will tell what exactly he's trying to do. There's a technical glitch, I guess.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Mr. Partha, please. But there is some problem
Hi,
out
Zad
here.
bhai.
You can,
Hi.
yeah, yeah, yes,
Am I
start
audible
speaking.
now?
Yeah, yeah. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
really sorry. I didn't know that I have to go to the
So
settings and
again,
like
the
get the
world is
microphone
facing
down.
the world is facing a lot of problems, and obviously there are technical glitches. So we have been training a lot
Of
of
course.
people, but then there are times when we don't have, the system supporting us. But over to you, please proceed. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Zaid bhai. Yeah, hello everyone and happy Ganesh Chaturthi. I had a shoot actually. I was returning and I could figure out. I realized that I can't reach home, so I just came into a cafe and I'm joining. Like I'm going live from here. Uh, I
Now
mean,
that
yes, I'm an
shows
actor. I
that's
think Zaid bhai,
actually
you have
yeah
already
that
given my
actually shows your
introduction.
dedication. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
I think mental health is very important because I've seen a few cases in my own family and I have faced it myself and I know the trauma or taboo attached to it. Like the first example I will give is of my one of my grandmother. I mean, my grandfather had two wives. the second granny that who I mean that we had, she was schizophrenic actually. But the problem is because during the early 90s and that time, I think schizophrenia was a big taboo and everyone was called mad. I mean, I
Yeah.
think Priyaranjan sir would agree with me that it's actually a disease, but a lot of people are like very skeptical about it, like addressing it or uh, because I don't remember if she was ever taken to any mental health facility, though we had seen a few doctors and as kids we were told that she got some electric shocks, but honestly we never knew anything about like
Yeah.
schizophrenia or what exactly it is. We had seen some people who were called mad, and that was later we realized when we matured that it's actually a disease called schizophrenia. So she was schizophrenic, but it was never addressed. So we dealt with whatever she went through, and she passed away in 2014. So that was one case in the family that I had seen as a kid, but I never knew anything about it. But when I realized, by the time I realized, it was too late, and or any one of us realized.
That's
Uh,
true, Partha, and in fact, this is why mental health, now people have been talking about it more often, and with the latest generation coming out with a lot of information about mental health, and a lot of people have been actively participating in things so that this never remains a taboo. So I'm hopeful that
I'm
yeah,
glad
yeah,
that's happening because again, I mean, as you mentioned that people have become more sensitive right now, which
yeah.
is a good thing. Like a lot of people have become more sensitive and accept that they've accepted that yeah, it is an issue and mental health is extremely important.
Yes. So,
And about my personal experience,
yes, yes, Partha. So that comes. So I'm coming to the questions because there are several many questions I need to, get.
yeah,
And the
sure,
viewers would
please.
be getting the questions. So I start with you. That
Okay.
depression and showbiz, basically. In the recent couple of months, you have been seeing that there are a lot of people from the entertainment industry are getting through depression, and where ultimately leading to deep depression, and then obviously suicide initiation or attempts. So just wanted to know what do you have to say on this?
See, showbiz again. I mean, it's a very insecure and uncertain profession. So I don't think any particular family, especially middle class or upper middle class family in India, would like their kids to be in the showbiz. Nobody suggests you to be in this profession. It happens out of passion. So especially for people like us, we are always told that you should complete your education properly, and you should have a degree with you to fall back on and because it's that uncertain. I mean, in recent cases, we have seen some bright people like a brilliant student like Sushant Singh Rajput, who was already a big star. Just imagine the condition, the situation he was going through. It's very easy for us to comment from outside that he was going through a good phase. He had so many hits behind
So
him.
in
He had
recent
a big hit
times,
called Chichore.
yeah. So in recent time, there is a surge of this kind of situations happening, right? So if I
Yes.
say in particular, what is bothering them? So a couple of, in fact, there must be one or two things that you think this is bothering them as a personality, especially in
See, first
showbiz.
thing I would say is like huge expectations. When you have like extremely high expectations of yourself that you want to achieve this or this is the benchmark that you have created in your mind that this is where I have to reach within a certain time. When that does not happen, a lot of people they are not able to handle it. There are some great people who are mentally very strong and they are able to handle it, but then a lot of people they're not able to handle it. So to say that someone is weaker than the other is like it's being unjust, and it's not right on our part to like judge them on that, because my problem might be smaller to someone else, but it might be a big problem to me. So everyone has their own problems, and there's a certain way of dealing with it. So some people have a good family system or a good support system who kind of support them during this crisis, and some people don't. I don't know what happened with
So
Sushant or maybe some other
maybe
cases.
is it due to maybe it would be due to insecurity in themselves and
Insecurity is definitely there,
Hmm.
and as I mentioned, that extremely high expectations. When you have that and you're not able to achieve that within a certain period of time, that kind of affects you mentally. And
So great start. I just wanted to take this question to China Kapoor. Um, I just wanted to know why do you think, because you have been dealing with so many people around, so wanted to know why don't people talk about mental illness and depression and in fact bipolar disorder and stuff like that. So why people don't feel like talking about it?
Honestly, since COVID started, people have actually been talking about
Yes,
it.
yeah, agreed.
But the problem is, it's only a few people who have that voice. Maybe in the cities, people are talking about it. In rural areas, people do not even know what it is. I recently wrote a story. I think your video froze. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, you continue please. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I recently wrote an article for the Telegraph UK where I interviewed people in rural areas on mental health. And there was this family. They had a son who was doing good. He had a job and everything, but during the first lockdown, his employer asked him to not to come to work, and he was home 3 months. And
Yeah.
in those 3 months, this man, young man, he started to, you know, get angry over everything. His moods, he was having mood swings, but the family didn't realize why it was, like, what is what for. So one day he had this fight with his father. He left home and he died. Like he killed himself. He jumped in the river. Now, when I met the family, now they realize that probably they should have noticed the change in his behavior.
Yes.
And this is what is the problem in smaller towns and rural areas. It's not about whether people want help or not, because a lot of these people are taking their family members to faith based mental asylum. So I am sure if the help is available, they would take it.
Yeah.
But they probably don't even know about it. So there's no awareness.
There
So
is number one, there is no awareness,
there's
and
no awareness. And
okay.
the problem is, even if we try to make aware them, we do not we where should we direct them? There are not
Exactly.
enough professionals.
Yep.
So that would be even more cruel, to make them aware and then don't give them a direction where to go.
Makes sense. So
So
the
yeah.
question again, thanks for that. And the question this goes to even Priyaranjan Avinash. So why do you think what makes them go for a suicide? I know there's again so people overthink and get into depression, then deep depression, then all those processes. It takes time to get into the suicidal mode. That is for sure. But what is the major cause of this suicide? Basically, what is that is leading people to suicide?
Ah, well, see, it's a very sensitive topic.
Yeah, please.
Now, any generalization would not be doing justice
Hmm.
to the topic itself.
Makes sense.
So I would refrain myself from generalizing to show business or for pressure or for stress, because all these things do contribute a little bit in pushing somebody to in taking that decision of killing himself or herself.
Makes sense.
But
Yeah.
they just play a very small but significantly important role. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, as Mr. Partho was saying that what could be a stress, a minor stress for you, may be a major stress for me, right?
Somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just the stress itself; it's more of the coping skills or mechanism that the person is having. So same amount of stress can be considered a disastrous stress or a big distress for X person, or the same amount of stress can be a good stress, like eustress, which pushes you to do things
Yeah.
for another person. So it's very hard to put that boundary. Okay, this much stress is more than
Mm.
enough. This much stress is optimal stress, because it varies from person to person. Now, coming to suicide, see, there are many theories why people eventually take their life away. Okay, one of the important theories when it comes to people from like celebrities. Why we are talking about celebrities? Primarily because when we talk about celebrities, this topic gets a lot of coverage. Okay, and we eventually want the stigma related to mental illnesses to go away, right? We also want the awareness to spread,
Yes.
and that is why a celebrity's life seems to it's unjust, but the fact is it just seems to be a little bit more important than an average person's life, because a celebrity dies due to suicide, everybody starts talking about it.
Yep.
But lakhs of farmers in India die due to suicide, we rarely talk
Nobody's
about
aware.
it.
In fact,
Yeah,
people don't
that's a
bother
fact.
to, in fact, know the
We don't really
news.
talk about it in such a frantic manner. But Okay, whatever it be. So if somebody does take his or her life away, the number one cause, without any doubt, is depressive disorder or depression. More than 50 to 60% of the people who die due to suicide are having depression at that moment.
Okay.
And depression is a disease, just like diabetes.
Yeah.
You know, so but nowadays we all are very okay with the idea that somebody might be having diabetes. But when it comes to accepting that yes, this person might be having depression as a disease, it's very difficult for us to accept it because of the stigma and everything. But
Hmm.
having said that, as Gina was saying, that COVID has definitely brought about a phenomenal change. What change you may have probably expected in a decade or so has happened in just 1.5 years. People have started talking about mental illness and mental health a lot in last
Yes.
1.5 years, more than a decade actually, I would say. So depression is the number one cause. The second cause is personality. Like certain people have that kind of personality when it comes to taking impulsive decisions. You know, majority of suicides are not very thought over. You don't really think through each step one by one. Majority of suicides are the background of depression, and in the foreground it is an impulsive act.
Hmm.
And that is the reason when we talk about suicide prevention, we talk about this, that if you can somehow delay a person's suicidal idea or thought even for a brief while, it's very likely that the person would not attempt it.
Makes sense.
So if I'm harboring a suicidal thought and I get to meet you and you talk to me about any random thing, I need to have somebody talk to me, right? I may just get distracted. I may just get over with that impulsive thought that in my mind and may not ever attempt it. So the most important thing for a person who is harboring the idea of suicide is that somebody should talk about it. Somebody
Okay.
should be there in his or her life who can talk about it openly, no question asked, non-judgmental. And that itself is the biggest anti-suicide protocol that all of us can practice in our family also. That if you feel ever, there is also a misconception, I would say, a belief that if you talk about suicide, somebody who might be having the idea may actually do it. No, the contrary is true. Okay, if you ever get an idea that your near and dear, your friend or family or somebody who is close to you might be having the thoughts of suicidal ideas, what we call it, just openly go and ask him or her.
Yeah.
a, a big chance is that if he's actually having the thought, he would be more than excited to talk about it, because he would know, okay, somebody is there to talk to me about this.
So basically, what I
Agree with
see is people look
that?
out for somebody supporting them, listening to them. So
Right.
so I got to know from somebody that it's 95 to 98% of listening, and that helps a lot. So I think China Kapoor has some points to share. I guess you raised
Sure.
your hand in between. I guess, or it's just a illusion. I don't know.
No, I did not.
You have to say something now that I have already asked you.
I totally agree with Dr. Priyaranjan. You know, these people who have a suicidal thought, it can we can help them by giving them a year. um, I don't know, I mean, I lost your question, but yeah.
Okay, no issues.
Hmm.
I just wanted to know.
A prep talk maybe.
There's one question, so that's open question to everybody. It's like, um, what should you do? If someone tells you that they're thinking about suicide, what is the very first thing you're going to do? Now, it's for everybody here. I would like to know.
Maybe
I'll
talk
just
to that
ask.
person first. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Please, China. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, same thing. I'll just ask them if they want to talk. If they
Uh,
want to talk, yeah.
yeah, that's initially it's like listening and talking,
Yes.
right? Everything else goes next to it. Okay. So, China, you have been associated with a couple of organizations, as well as you are also involved to, outside India as well. You are linked with a couple of more organizations as well, working on the mental health industry. Just would like to know exactly any of the things that you are quite impressed with their way of handling mental health, and which we can incorporate here in India, or maybe it's not, catching up to that. Any initiatives taken by the
I
government or
think
probably any
i-
private agencies?
in India, we are still going the institutional way. We are still
Hmm.
talking about opening up new institutions, whereas everywhere else, it's just the opposite. They
Yeah.
are, you know, deinstitutionalizing everything. They want to give these people who are in the institutions a chance to live a normal life. Maybe, you know, take them out in the society. But here it's the opposite. The government is announcing more institutions in the coming years. So I think there we are going totally wrong. I mean, that's what I feel. Also, I think we need to invest a lot more. Our health budget is anyway low, and mental health budget is just nothing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think globally, people are actually investing in mental health. We are not. So,
Yeah, I'm very surprised because initially, when we had that first lockdown, right,
hmm,
after that, there was a huge challenge of mental health conditions. And I
hmm.
remember that even the numbers shared by the government departments and the state government departments, talking about, creating a helpline to talk about mental health, cater, but then most of the time it was not even working. So
You
I
won't
understand that.
believe, in cities in Delhi, people who those people who can afford, even they are not being, they can't find a therapist for themselves. So I know a few people who are ready to pay, and obviously because of people talking about mental health, the rates have gone up, so there's unaffordability. But even those who can afford it, they are not able to find a therapist for themselves. Nobody is free. All the therapists are totally booked for the next few months.
Okay.
So that's the situation right now. So even those who, like I said earlier, so even those who are aware, they're not getting help. Even those who are seeking help.
Hmm.
So
So yeah, rightly said about the current mental health scenarios and how people are not able to find a proper, way. So again, the very first thing that you mentioned about the normal way of taking mental health is like people look out, and they believe. In fact, Priya Ranjan's already said about it that people think they don't know the difference between a psychiatrist and a normal counselor or probably a clinical psychologist. For every other thing they say कि ये, this guy has gone mad, so just take him to any of the psychiatrists. So don't understand that even the normal 60-70% counseling can be rectified through the initial level of counseling, and any of the counselor can do it. The mental health professional can do it. Then we proceed with all those clinical psychologists and therapists, or probably if seriously there is a huge problem, then obviously the psychiatry comes into picture. But I would also like to understand if anything that you have been doing to in your own capacity, and to make sure that people are more getting accessible to these kind of services around, and what is your takeaway, or something that you are doing on your own capacity. I just would like to know about it as well.
so I think we cannot take the we cannot connect everyone to a doctor. So the best way is to probably discuss among ourselves and give them a ear. Like here, I've been in Rishikesh the last few months, and here we have started what is called the circles. So
Hmm.
some of us, we get together once a week, we sit together and we discuss whatever is bothering us. So that's been very helpful.
Okay.
And since Rishikesh has a wide foreign community as well, so there are all kinds of people from everywhere around the world, and we all sit, discuss each other's problem, and we all try to give them our solutions and our opinions as well. So this has helped a lot of people. They don't feel alone because they are away from their country, like away from their people. So that's what we've been doing here. And I think not everyone, no offense, but not everyone needs to go to a psychiatrist. Initially, maybe we can build something called, community level. We can provide them community level help, where someone in the community just
So basically, these are to make sure there is enough of awareness among the society
yes.
so that people get accessible to all the services. So when we talk
And
about
people,
awareness, I would like even Partha Ray to say about this because he has been into involved. And in fact, one of his movies is also based on the mental health. In recent times, I have seen. I'm not very fond of movies, but then I literally watched that film, and it was very much, I liked it very much because it is for typically for the mental health condition. So through documentaries, what you are doing, just wanted to know what exactly is your mindset, how exactly working through documentaries and films and short movies can actually help. Over to you, Partha.
Zaid, yeah, that was just a short film that was shot last year during the COVID situation, but it did not actually address mental health.
Okay.
It was about a person in the society who's actually very extremely intelligent. He questions the government. He speaks against organized religion. He speaks against chronic capitalism, because of which he is deemed mad. Okay, so that was a different subject, and it was purely fiction. But again, I mean, I have a question regarding this mental health thing because I think in metros there are a lot of options, or maybe there are many therapists or psychiatrists to whom you can go and seek help from. But in places like Bhubaneswar or even smaller towns or smaller cities, there's a lot of stigma attached to this mental health situation, and a lot of people they don't come forward to speak about it. I myself have gone through it some time back, and it was a very difficult phase. Fortunately, my parents were very supportive, who came and they spoke to me quite often. I have some good childhood friends who used to call me again and again because they knew about my situation. But yes, I'm a person who also enjoys solitude, and I found my way of dealing with it. I had my walk to keep me engaged. I still think that when people are disturbed, if they're engaged with something, then that helps.
Yeah.
This is just my opinion. I don't know. I mean, as I
Yeah,
mentioned
very well
earlier,
said.
that
In fact, Partha, basically, when even the psychiatrists and people into the same subject matter expertise can actually say, ki it's in these times you actually divert the attention of the person who is getting through mental issues, right? Uh, because with the shortage of time, I would definitely want couple of few more questions to be asked. So my other another question to you is basically, can we share some success stories so that the viewers can actually know that it is a very normal condition and it can happen to anybody any point of time several times in their life. So just wanted to know a few success stories if you can share. So you don't need to specify the names or any details of the person whom you handle, but then I just wanted to have some success stories that yes, the person was going through this conditions and eventually after so many months or years, the person got was cured on a proper note. Over to
see
you,
there are
Priyaranjan, Avinash. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, please.
Yeah. So there were things that some of the things that Partho and Gina were speaking regarding how there's a paucity of trained mental health professionals, especially in the smaller towns and villages. See, the fact is, and we also were associating stigma with it because there is a stigma. That's why people don't not visit a psychiatrist or a doctor or a psychologist. So the problem is the stigma is largely a man-created problem, right? A society-created problem. And
Right.
who are the stakeholders of society? You, me, us, right?
Yes.
It's largely when we refrain. Like I remember Patho saying that his grandmother had schizophrenia, and people were like, okay, we only know mental illness as somebody being mad. Now this is something very controversial. Many times I get into debate. People say, why do you call somebody who having mental illness as mad? I said,
Yeah.
what's the problem? Call mad. The problem is with acceptance. The moment you feel
Mm.
being called mad is a problem, you start stigmatizing it. If I can proudly say I'm hypertensive, I am diabetic, I had COVID, if I can proudly say, I mean, without any much emotion attached to it, why can't I say that I was mad before?
The people
Now,
say
fine.
proudly that I am mad in love.
Yeah, right. So the problem is the connotation of the word that we associate ourselves. The more people start talking about their own mental health problem, the less stigma will be there in the society. So the breaking the stigma is the responsibility of each one of us. When we start accepting and talking openly about mental illness, openly, without camouflaging into sugar-coated words. Okay,
Yeah.
and that would be the first initiative taken in generalizing, making mental illness as like any other illness. That would be the first step. The second step, how can you help somebody who is harboring suicidal idea? I said something about talking. That brings me to an interesting anecdote I read somewhere. Maybe some of you may have read it already. You may have read a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, you may or may not have read it. Viktor Frankl was a guy, who was in the concentration camp during the Nazis' time in Germany. And he was Jew, right? So he went through a lot of hardship. He was a doctor. And he eventually, when he came out of it, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, which is the largest, highest selling self-help book ever written. Okay. So he's a doctor. Now he's a psychiatrist also. So later, when he was released from the concentration camp and he was practicing, one fine day, a woman who is a patient of his called him in the middle of the night, talking about that, doctor, I'm harboring serious suicidal ideas. I'm going to kill myself anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me something. Why should I not kill myself? Okay. And he's a very generous and very empathetic doctor. So he really wants to save the life of his patient. So he starts telling him, see, you have a nice family. See, this is a nice time, nice weather. He started trying to tell that woman any goddamn good thing about life. Trying to convince her that life is not that bad. You must live.
Mm.
Now, the doctor, Viktor Frankl, kept speaking to the woman for the whole night. And eventually, in the early wee hours in the morning, the lady hung up. And the doctor did not know what happened afterwards. Many, many years later, this Viktor Frankl met that lady again. And the lady reminded him, the doctor, do you remember a few years back, some years back, I had given you a phone call in the middle of the night and I was telling you that I'm going to kill myself. And you told me so many good things about life. And you told me, what is the reason? Why should I not try and kill myself? What are the good things about life? So Viktor Frankl said, yeah, I do remember. But then Viktor Frankl also became curious. Obviously, she is there. That means she did not kill herself. So he was curious, of all the things that I told you, what exactly made you change your mind from killing yourself and living? The woman said that nothing actually worked at that time. Whatever argument that you gave me, nothing really worked. The only thing that worked, because I knew the whole night after speaking to you when I hung up the phone, that this world is really not that bad. If somebody is there in the middle of the night who can just listen to me and try to help me, nothing really helped. The mere, drive and passion with which you are trying to help me made me feel that this world is not bad. That there are people in this world who are trying to genuinely help you live. That itself was the reason enough for me to change my mind, and I did not never ever attempted suicide, and then she survived. So this is an anecdote. I'm telling you from an experience of a very great psychiatrist who's
That's
known the world over.
so good to hear. Even if it is a story, it's not a story. I don't think it's a story,
Yeah, it's a
right?
real story.
And
He has written his
it
book.
actually connects a lot of people that only by listening you do achieve a lot of things, right? And
Yeah.
building hopes
So
is one of
it
the
doesn't
major.
matter.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter what you say. It
yeah.
doesn't really matter if you don't know what to say. I mean, you
Mm.
might, you get a phone call from your friend and he's telling that I'm going to kill yourself, and you're like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. How should I help him? Don't do anything. Just listen to him. Even if you're not a trained counselor or a psychologist,
Right, right.
listening is something that you can do, right? Passive listening is also good enough. Active listening is better, but passive listening is also good enough. If you can do that, that is also good enough. So that is one thing. Third thing is that I have many success stories. I mean, if I ask me stories, I'll tell you most people who attempt suicide once,
Mm-hmm.
if they survive
Mm-hmm.
and we treat, they usually do not attempt again. They usually, most I'm saying, very few attempt again and again, and that's a different case altogether. But most people who attempt suicide once survive, treated for their primary cause, that is most of the time depression or another cause, they would usually not attempt again. And they
Great.
would lead a very, very fruitful life. I have seen, I would say, thousands of such cases in my life.
Yes, same here because we have handled couple of cases, and I see that there was a case where there were three times attempt, and the fourth time the girl is like, she got herself moved out of the room after almost 3.5 years. She was restricting herself to a single room for almost 3.5 years. But after counseling 3 sessions, she made her like, कि, Dad, I just want to move outside. Please take me along. Right after 3.5 years, and since then the girl is all normal. So this is again one thing. And when I didn't start this One Life back in 2019, I was a normal counselor. So there was a very small story. So there was a WhatsApp group for startups and entrepreneurs, and there was this guy who has written that I am going through a lot of stress, and I don't think I would, adjust more into it. So I probably will kill myself. I feel like killing myself. So everybody was like, कि, आ जाओ, 2 पैक लगाते हैं, what is this nonsense, I'm there for you, this and that, everything. And I just took his number and then I called him up. So where are you? And he said, I'm here. So okay, I stay near to your place. Why don't you come down for and we'll talk? What is it regarding? No, nothing. Just I am also very new to startups, and it seems like you came with a reason. Let's talk. Trust me, that person was going through a lot of depression because he lost his dad, and the entire two sisters' marriage was upon his head, shoulders, and he was not finding. He was earning good in Bangalore, but was like, I cannot go ahead and do all these things in the coming days. So I probably this is the only way out. Let me tell you very frankly, just 2 hours of talk with him, totally just listening and talking about him and giving it all this rosy things about his salaried amount and how he can make his life beautiful in the coming days. This was the person who said me by moving out that if आप अगर नहीं मिले होते तो शायद ये अभी जो second जो जिंदगी मैंने सोच रखी है, it's all because of you. That gives a very strong feeling in yourself as well, that oh my god, I'm so blessed that people actually. So listening obviously helped a lot because we have several cases. A very nice point raised by Priyaranjan, in fact. So I also have a question. So for you, is it possible to predict suicide?
Yes,
A lot
yes,
of people would be trying to understand that in and
yes,
around, if there is somebody who is, going through the stress and probably will commit suicide in the coming days. So how to predict
mhm,
it? That's our next question for you.
right. So what we call it as a red flag sign. So when you see any of this sign, you need
Yeah.
to be alarmed,
Hmm.
and that's what we call it as a red flag sign. So especially it is for people whom you know, right? So you know the behavior and the pattern and the characteristic of that person. So when you see a significant change in that person's behavior, personality, or way of dealing with things lately, you need to be alarmed. I
Okay.
mean, and there is no harm in being over alarmed. There is no harm in being over alarmed. It's possible that you are over alarmed. No problem. That's still fine. You did try to save one life, right? So that's one thing. Second, if you feel that in your family, somebody close to you or your friend or somebody whom you know very well has suddenly started talking about life in general in a very negative way, what's
Hmm.
the meaning of life? Why do we have to go through the hardship of life? Things like that. These are very subtle signs. People start speaking before they start talking about active suicide. People start talking about passive suicide. I wish things would just stop. I wish I just don't have to wake up in the morning and face the hardship of life. I wish I was dead. So these are very passive way of speaking about death wishes, right?
Yes,
We call it
yes.
death wishes. The third thing is that when you see that suddenly the person has become a very recluse and have also started talking about uh, I want to make a will of mine. He starts giving away his valuables, things that he was very close to it, and he started giving away, that I don't need it anymore. I'll give it to somebody. So that usually is a preparation. This is usually done by people who have started planning out suicide. There
Right.
is a huge number of people, and I'm saying that most suicide are impulsive, but that doesn't mean that planned suicide doesn't happen. Planned
Mm.
suicide also happens. Okay. So when people start planning out things that if they are not there, they're near and dear, and people who are related to them, who are dependent on them, are somehow taken care very well, would be started giving these signs of giving away their valuables, making a will, things like that. Fourth, it is often said that people, there is a proverb in English and Hindi both. that jo garaste hain wo baraste nahi, the barking dog seldom bite, right? But that's absolutely untrue when it comes to suicide. We in our mental health profession, we say that anybody who ever talks about suicide is a potential case of suicide.
Yeah, I agree
Okay,
somehow. Yeah.
so don't say that okay, he just keeps talking, he's not going to do it.
So
No,
by doing that,
not
you are
at all.
actually instigating them.
Yeah, the point is
Yeah.
that even if he talks 100 times and 99 times he doesn't do it, but it just takes one time to attempt to kill.
Yeah.
One time is good enough, isn't it? So even if the person keeps talking about suicide, you still have to take each and every statement given by the person, each and every so-called threat by the person very seriously. There is no harm in erring on the side of safety. You err, but if you are erring on the side of safety, that's okay. So take each and every suicide threat very seriously. So these are some of the red flag signs that you would see. If you see that the person has suddenly started procuring medicines which are potentially hazardous, like sleeping tablets, started keeping things, which can. So we also say that if you have in your house and you know somebody who has got mental illness, things which can be potentially hazardous or lethal, like a gun in the house, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
If you see things like pesticides, etc., in the house, that is a potential risk. So if you see any of these red flag signs, you start looking at the other preparations. And the most important thing, again, the more and more I say, even if you err on the side of safety, ask him if anything gives you a message that the person might be having a very negative thought about life. Do you think life is not worth living? Are you at any moment of time thinking about killing or ending everything? And if you say yes, take it very seriously.
Yes. So before we leave, thanks so much for the insights. Before we leave, we just wanted to know, sir, what we should be doing now. So already we have been doing a lot of things in our lives so that people are well aware of the situations as well as how to tackle all the situations. Just wanted to have some best practices which we can take. Everybody of us who is listening, who is sitting here, can actually take away as a best practice what we have to do in the coming days. Partha,
Uh,
we'll
I'm
start from
sorry, I
you.
just want to just say one more
Go
thing,
ahead,
and then I
please,
will
Priya.
end.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
please
because
go
I
ahead.
feel that this is a platform where I think there's an actor also in the panel discussion, and I rarely get to interact with actors, people from show business. So I was just saying,
Go ahead.
see, the media has a very important role to play in suicide prevention. Very, very, very important role to play. Actually, more role than a psychiatrist for us to play, because our reach is limited. Media has an exceptional phenomenal reach. And with the media, I bring that topic of how do you portray suicide in popular media, whether it is movies, drama, serials, or even newspapers or news, video television news. Everywhere, the way suicide reported is reported in a very juicy manner. I'm sorry to tell you the fact, but it's a juicy manner in a very dramatic manner. And that's a huge problem. There are media guidelines also that how you should not report a suicide case, especially about the famous actor we all were talking about it, in Bollywood. See, when there is a case called Werther syndrome, this is my last thing that I'm going to talk about. So when 200, 300 years back, there was a German writer, it's very difficult to pronounce his name. His name is like Booth or Gothe, however you want to pronounce it. So he wrote a book about a person called Werther. Okay, and he wrote this book that this Werther was a very interesting character. And he's a great writer. So when he wrote about the character, many people started identifying himself with that character called Werther. And eventually in the book, the Werther kills himself.
Mhm.
Now, when Werther kills himself, after the release of the book, thousands of people all over the Europe kill themselves in the same manner.
Mm.
And this is called as copycat suicide. People started identifying themselves with Werther so much. And the way that the story of killing of Werther was given in a very romanticized, very dramatic, very juicy manner, that itself pushed many of the admirers of Werther to kill themselves. And that is why and this is a clear guideline, but I believe that press and media has a huge responsibility to play when it comes to portraying and uh, reporting case of suicide, because a lot of people who
Yeah.
are very sensitive, who are very prone to identify themselves with an actor or a character, get very carried away when the actor or the character does something like a suicide.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say about media's role in suicide prevention.
Yeah. So China can actually say something on this because you also is a photojournalist. So what's your responsibility? How you are managing it, and what is your way of dealing with this?
I've done my study when it comes to media guidelines on reporting suicide.
So a lot of people
But
have done this
I
study, but
agree.
then when it comes to actually reporting and all those stuffs, now everything is like paid thing now, right? So it goes the other way
No,
around.
not everything, but yeah, most things.
Yeah, most things.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Priya Ranjan. A lot of reporters are not reporting suicide, right? Like, for example, some of them are still writing this person committed suicide. So committed is not a term we use with suicide. You have to, it's either died by suicide or killed themselves. So a lot of the media don't even know the right terminology that they have to use, because they make it sound sensational. They make
Yeah.
it sound, you know. Uh, so that is something that attracts people, especially the young adults.
Hmm.
So I totally agree with him. Media plays a very important role here, and especially the TV media, the way they sensationalize the last few suicides. We've all seen that.
That's
And
actually sad state of affairs. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it maybe in smaller towns or in rural areas, maybe it encourages young people to do that, because they think it's another, it probably gives them that attention. It might give them that attention. So yeah,
Great.
I agree with him on
Yeah,
that.
thanks, Gina. And Partha, from you, we'll start off taking the best practices or something we should be doing at this hour and going forward. So, what is there for us? You know, please share what can we do to curb this.
I'm not I'm not a mental health expert,
No, no,
but
you're not
whatever
expert,
I
but
have read,
as an influential person, as an actor, as a person who is mostly being, people have been watching you. Obviously, you have people look forward for a lot of things. So that is why Mr. Priya also said about this, that when it becomes a responsibility for even the people from the media and entertainment industry to sensitized on the issues and give their as a responsibility, they have to behave in a manner that people listen to them in a proper way, because you're not at a normal common person who is like being looked after, or probably people will obviously go through whatever Shahrukh Khan does, whatever Partha Ray does, or any XYZ does, right? So definitely as a person, there is some sense of responsibility in yourself. So I would like to know about it.
definitely see, as you mentioned, like when you are a public figure and a lot of people look up to you, the best thing that you can do is these days, like social media is like has an amazing reach. So if you can spread positivity through that, if you can share good success stories and stories of achievements and stories of triumph, then that can help people. And as Dr. Priyaranjan mentioned, or even Sheena mentioned, or you mentioned, what I heard from you and what I've read in through in different forums,
Mhm.
the best thing that you can do to a person who's actually disturbed or who's not feeling good about whatever is happening in his life is to listen to that person.
Yeah,
That helps a lot. I mean, whatever I heard from you guys, that is the best thing that you can do. And I've seen that in my real life also. Like
yeah.
whenever I'm like very extremely upset and I talk to a childhood friend, they can figure out from the way I speak, they can figure out
Mm.
that I'm disturbed.
Yeah.
And the same happens with other friends also. When I'm talking to a friend, if a close friend is disturbed, I can figure that out. बस
Mhm.
एक जो friend की गाली होती है ना, बस भाई कोई गाली दे देता है, भाई आजा, we'll do this, we'll do that.
Yeah.
That helps.
Mm.
That
Come
simple,
over a
that
cup
simple
of
thing.
coffee. Come over a
Come
cup
on
of
यार,
tea.
यार दो
Let's
पेग
talk.
लगाते हैं,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, यार दो पेग लगाते हैं. So
Mm.
that helps a lot.
Great.
So we can do that among our community that we are related to. And about the media's role in spreading positivity, this is the best way. I mean, through our social media handles, if we can share stories of positivity, that will
Mm.
help a lot of people.
Thanks, Partha.
instead of
Over to
spreading
China.
hatred.
I
Thank you so
just
much. Yeah.
want to add something here. If you see someone using phone all the time, or they are on social media all the time, and they are not really interacting to real people,
Hmm.
they are not meeting people, that's also one of the signs, because social media these days, it makes you feel like you're not enough.
Yeah.
uh, you know Anything and everything, all the advertisements, all the posts, they make you feel like you're not enough. So if you
Yeah,
see somebody who's on their phones all the time, and they don't really want to connect, or they don't really want to be a part of social gatherings or family gatherings, or do not even want to come and sit with you on the dinner table, then you should take that as a
Very nice
sign.
suggestions you have given. In fact, I can relate. Yeah.
right, Chin. I
Yeah.
mean, I can relate with it too because a lot of people from smaller towns or villages in Odisha, they who look up to us, they keep on telling us all these things. There's a huge complex issue, as
Mm.
China mentioned, that they think that we are not enough. When they see people on social media posting about a lot of their big things, I'm not talking about that. Actually, I was talking about by achievements, I meant positivity, like small things that people who have fought depression or fought against some hardships and reached somewhere. I'm talking about that. But yeah, what China mentioned is absolutely relevant because that is what I've heard from a lot of people.
AIM started a behavioral clinic a few years back, and most of the children who are being brought to the clinic are the ones who are just not leaving their rooms. They want to be there on their phones all the time, either playing games or making virtual friends, but they are not making any real friends, and that's a leading cause of suicide. So, yeah.
So over to Priyaranjan.
Yeah. So already, I think many of the things I've already spoken. The most important, since we are talking about social media at this moment, so I just wanted to bring another up, I would say, way to look at it. So I just said that the number one cause for suicide is depression.
Yeah.
But do you know what is the number two cause for suicide? Loneliness.
Loneliness.
And people, we are spending a lot of time on Facebook and Instagram, and we are all after our Instagram likes and Facebook followers, etc., etc. But eventually, our generation have, there is a study to prove it actually, have less number of true and real friends as our previous generation, if you compare it from our previous one. We may be having thousands of friends on our Facebook, but those friends don't really count. Okay. So the social media friends, people, there is a difference between being lonely, being alone, and being in solitude. Solitude is something that you really like. You want to having great ideas in your mind, you want to harbor it, you want to germinate it and make it something very big. You go into solitude, you think about it. That's a
Mm.
very positive being alone. You feeling lonely, you can feel lonely even when you are in a group, right? So feeling lonely and being alone are two different things. People who are feeling lonely have one of the highest risk of suicide, especially when it comes with the deadly combo of depression. So depression and loneliness itself is one of the most deadly combinations of somebody who might attempt suicide. And people who spend a lot of time on social media usually are feeling very lonely, because social media does not usually give you the same kind of human connect that you get in your one-to-one friendship and your interaction that you have with your family and friends
So
on your Facebook.
this is a warning for a lot of viewers. There must be a lot of people around you who would be going through this kind of distress. So please do not ignore all those things. Yeah, that's a very good point you have raised. Thanks everybody for joining. In fact, I was lovely interacting with you, and in fact, I will be in touch in the coming days with a lot of more programs. And it's I believe that it's only through awareness, it's only through talking about it, it's only through best practice sharing that we can actually go ahead and look out for a healthy, mentally healthy and physically healthy society. Thanks everybody for joining, and I'll be sharing the video soon.
Thank
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Bye
Thank you.
bye,
thank you,
good
everybody.
night.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Bye. Good.